Coming up on this episode of Everyone Has a Voice.
They're going to sit in my recliner and eat my Twinkies.
Yeah, they're going to be in your refrigerator, Jason.
What if they accidentally delete my shows on my DVR?
Silenced by her own sin over a decade ago, she believes in giving everyone a voice. She's an author, speaker, mentor, and voice for the underdog. Be inspired by radical stories of change that prove you could be one different choice away from a better tomorrow. Welcome to the show that proves them wrong. This is Everyone Has a Voice with Christy Neal, brought to you by Choose Different Ministries.
Welcome to the show. I love an overcomer story, and we have Jason Goolesby with us today, journalist and songwriter and friend of mine. And Jason, it's good to have you.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Yes. So tell me, why will February 13th be a big day to you?
This will be the 8th year anniversary of my sobriety. After about, I don't really know how long I was involved in addiction. You know, that's kind of one of the things. It kind of sucks you in, and you don't really remember. There was not never a point that says it's beginning right now.
That's right.
There was not a sign.
That's right.
A sign. So, but I would say that I drank every day, probably for 10 to 12 years, just about almost every day.
Wow. You know, sin always keeps you longer than you intended to stay, doesn't it? I'm just going to take a little sip.
Yeah.
You know, just a little season.
Some people can do that, but some of us can't. And there was a point that I could. My drinking career, though, started very young. I grew up in rural Alabama, and everybody had farms and woods and stuff, and we would have campouts. Yeah. And I remember the first time I was over at a friend's house, and there was a bunch of us and some older boys came over, and they had gotten this from a bootlegger and a fifth of vodka and a gallon of Sunny Delight. And
Sunny D.
Yep, and I remember around that campfire, and I remember them pouring the Sunny Delight out enough to fit that fifth in there, and then started passing it around, you know. And I was 13 or 14 years old.
Wow.
I can't remember.
Oh, my goodness. My daughter's 14.
I know, right? It starts, I mean, kids, that feeling, I remember that stuff started coursing through my veins, and I remember thinking, oh, my gosh, what have I found? This is awesome.
This is awesome. Why didn't anybody tell me about this sooner?
Yeah, right. Off and on through high school and stuff, I really could take it or leave it. It changed when I got in college, and more exposed to it. You know, I'm 21 years old now or whatever. I was younger than that. And that's when really the partying, I developed habits where I just didn't know how to have a good time.
I see. Without
alcohol. Yeah. I just didn't know how to function. So everybody graduated college and went on to graduate school, got married, and I didn't. A lot of people stopped, and I didn't. I continued on in those. I just loved it. Yeah. It was like and then one day you just look up and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm almost 30 years old. I really think I knew, I'm in somewhere I can't get myself out of.
Did you ever think to yourself, I think I'm an alcoholic?
I did. I tell you what, I set a date for myself. I was going to quit when I was 30.
Oh, I see. That was the benchmark goal, huh? So what happened when you turned 30?
I kept drinking.
Did it bother you?
Yeah, it did. I remember being in my kitchen one night. That was before I got married, and I remember I had been to church that day, you know. Throughout all this, I stayed in church.
I was going to ask, are you a believer?
Yeah, I am. And there was never a time that I was out for very long, you know. But I was always there checking off I'll have my roll.
Oh, yeah, went to church. Check it off.
Check it off.
I'm good.
I went to church this morning. I'm good. I remember it being on a Sunday night, and I remember I had a bottle of cold liquor up in the freezer, and I remember I'm like, I don't really want to do this, but I went up there anyways and started to drink that Sunday night. And I remember, like, this has got me. Yeah, and I was 30, and that still went on for several more years. I was not done.
So how would you describe your drinking career?
You know, it started very early, and then there was points that I could go without it until one day you look up and there was a moment. My grandfather died. My paternal grandfather died in 2001, and I went home to Alabama for the funeral, and I was there with my mom and dad that night, and I didn't have anything, I wasn't drinking her. And I remember thinking, this is the first time I can remember a long time that I had went.
But I haven't.
It just became a part of life. And I've always had sleeping problems. I've always had insomnia and stuff. Yeah. And so it got to where, I just couldn't go to...
You needed it.
It helped me go to sleep every night. And so,
I like what you said about it hit you, it got me.
Yeah.
There's people listening right now that they're in a situation and they may be thinking...
And it sneaks up
got me. Yeah, it sneaks up on you. It's a slow fade.
It's too late by the time you realize. One time I fell out of the boat in the Koi going down the Whitewater. Wow. And I took a big old gulp of that water and got choked on it in the Koi whitewater rafting. And I went into the panic phase. They said that I thought I was going to drown. Yeah. And I remember that was a similar feeling. Yeah. This is it. That
drowning feeling. Yeah.
This is it. I don't know. Helpless. Absolutely. Yeah. I don't know what to do.
So you received a letter from a lifelong friend while you were
in a treatment facility. Yeah. I have a former career as a teacher, and that's what made this even a more interesting story, I guess. Yeah. Is 2009. I had a car accident, single car accident, thank God, in Wilson County, over in Lebanon, where we live now. And
Lebanon,
yeah.
Lebanon representing. Went to Lebanon High School.
Had a single car accident over there, and spent not the night, but 4 hours in jail. Let me tell you, I was a horrible prisoner.
Really?
I'd have been a good guy. I'd never been in trouble before.
Tell us about that. And, 4 hours.
A single car accident, and I couldn't get out of the car. I was going to take off running, and I couldn't get out of the car because I was trapped. And this so happened, this tow truck driver saw me, and he pulled over, and by the time he got me out, the cops were there, so I couldn't take off running. Wow. So I was going to take off running because I knew my toast was done.
That's right. You were caught.
And I spent 4 hours in jail, and and I was just, and there's nothing to do in those jail cells. So I did what everybody else. I did push-ups.
Did you really?
And then I slept for a while, and then it was okay until that stuff started wearing off. And then, I thought you were supposed to spend 12 hours in jail, but my fiance came and got me out.
Wow. Did she know that you were a drinker?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. She came and got me, and I had no idea what time it was. And so when she came and got me, and it was, I said, "What time is it?" Mm-hmm. Because I knew that I could, if it was, they quit selling beer at 2:00.
Oh my goodness!
And I knew I could go.
So even your question was around an agenda to get more alcohol.
Oh yeah. Oh. That was on a Friday night. And by Tuesday of the next week, I was in a treatment facility. I knew.
Wow. By choice?
Yeah. Was there for only 14 days. Yeah. While I was there, I got a letter from a lifelong friend of mine. Yeah. He told me kind of a little bit about his own experience that I didn't know. He was in a Bible study at his church a few years before that. And they were studying the parables of Jesus. Mm-hmm. And they were studying the parable of the weeds. To some people, if you got a King James version or New King James, it'd be called the parable of the wheat and the tares. I'm going to read that if you don't mind.
Sure.
This is Matthew 13:24. This is right after the famous parable of the sower. Jesus told them another parable. The kingdom of heaven is like a man who sowed good seed in his field. But while everyone was sleeping, his enemy came and sowed seeds among the wheat and went away. And when the wheat sprouted and formed heads, the weeds also appeared. The owner's servants came to him and said, "Sir, didn't you sow good seed in your field? Where then did the weeds come from?" "An enemy did this," he replied. The servants asked him, "Do you want us to go and pull them up?" "No," he answered, "because while you are pulling up the weeds, you may uproot the wheat with them. Let them both grow together until the harvest. At that time, I will tell the harvesters, first collect the weeds and tie them in bundles to be burned. Then gather the wheat and bring it into my barn." So Andy's story was similar to mine in that he had grown up in the church.
Doing all the right things you're supposed to do and none of the things you're not.
That's right. I made a profession of faith when I was 7 years old at Vacation Bible School because I didn't want to go to hell. I mean, who wants to go to hell?
That's right. And don't want to burn.
I'm sure that the preachers that I grew up listening to preached love and grace and stuff, but I remember as a kid, the only thing I heard was hell. Mm-hmm. And God seemed angry, and he was ready to slap our hands anytime we did something. Yeah. While I'd made that profession of faith, there had never been any fruit. And so when Andy sent me that letter, he told about his own thing. He's in church just like I had been, and he's at a Bible study, and he realizes that he is a weed amongst the wheat, and that there was going to come a day when they were going to be gathered up first and burned. and then but the wheat would be coming into the barn. He didn't say it, but I remember reading that letter by lamplight that night and sitting at this little desk and saying, I think he's telling me that he was not saved and I was not, and maybe I'm not either.
Yeah, maybe I'm lost.
Maybe I'm not, which, iron sharpens iron, right? And thank God for he spoke some truth into my life. And then I realized I never bore any fruit any time in my life, I didn't lie much. I didn't cheat much. I didn't steal much. I thought I was a pretty good guy.
Yeah.
And
performance-based.
Yeah. Legalism, we can really get into that.
Yeah.
I wasn't even, looking back, I wasn't even following the rules.
You were like a C. You had a C average.
I know, right? And, I thought I was doing it all, but looking back, I wasn't even really following the rules right.
I wasn't even a good lost Christian. I hear you. I've been there.
That's a good one. I wasn't even a good lost one. I really got to thinking about my salvation, and when I got sober on February 13th, 2011.
Wow.
So a lot of time passed.
But I love how it started with that letter.
It did.
And so I want to say, if you're listening and you've had it on your heart for a while, to send a letter to someone in your circle, to tell them some things that you've been meaning to tell them for a long time, I encourage you to sit down. Now is the time. This is your God nudge to write that letter, because you literally could be hindering someone from their healing journey if you don't write that letter.
I heard a guy say this on a podcast one time. He said, we'll make it a point to reach out to people on their birthday and just congratulate them for surviving one more year.
Yeah.
That's all they've done.
Yeah, you made it.
Well, you made it. Congratulations on not killing yourself over the last year.
Or being killed, yes.
But then when it comes to things like you talk about, like a letter that we know somebody is struggling with the death of a family member or something, we will hesitate to do that, and we shouldn't. We really should.
We worry about how it will be received and how they'll think of us, but it's not about us. It's about them.
Thank God that Andy took the time to, who writes letters anymore?
Yeah.
And thank God he took the time to write that letter and tell me about his own experience and not be worried about whether or not I'd get mad.
Yeah, and it's tangible, and you can keep it and reread it.
I still have it.
Yeah, it's awesome.
So that was my effects.
September of 2009, and then it took, you said, what?
About a year and a half. And there was another friend of ours that invited me to his church. I remember him sending the text and saying, we got friends and family day. Yeah. And I'm saying, well, I usually go to my church. And he said, well, come to mine. He knew what I was going through.
Yeah.
And the message that morning was about how God is a motion-activated God, and used the example of how you rub your hands in front of a paper towel dispenser in the bathroom, and that when God sees this motion, a lot of times he will react to it and he'll come to us. I was about at the end. I was really miserable. My body was starting. My kidneys hurt all the time because it's processing all this.
Wow. They've been poisoned, for years and years.
I can tell you for months, it wasn't just in my head. For months after I got sober, when I would sweat and exercise, I could smell. Yeah. I could smell the barley coming out of me.
Let me tell you, Jason, I used to work at the YMCA for about 4 years, and I worked on the fitness floor. I was a wellness coach. Mm-hmm. And I could always tell who'd been drinking the night before. You can smell it.
Yeah.
So, yes.
And a friend invited me to his church, and I went that Sunday morning, and it was about motion-activated God, and I never answered an altar call or anything like that. But I'll tell you, when it happened, my feet started walking towards the altar, and it's like I didn't know that I was doing it. And I'm like, oh, my gosh, I'm moving forward. I'm going down here. It was a very simple prayer. It was, God help me. I've tried it my way. I'm done.
That's right.
And that was about it. And I kept repeating that over and over. And I can tell you that I had quit 100 times before, but that was the time that I really quit.
That's good. And let me just say, it can be as simple as that.
Oh yeah, it doesn't have
God help me. Yeah. I've tried it my way. I am so done. I'm a hot mess.
So why do we think that we get caught up in these fancy prayers and think that we have to ask a really fancy way and make it cute? I'm a songwriter, and so we're always thinking about ways that we can say something really cute and hooky and all that stuff. When it comes to the Lord, He created the universe. Mm-hmm. So nothing you say is going to impress this guy.
Nothing new. Nothing new under the sun. I always think of it as like my daughter. a lot of times I know what's going on in her life, right? We're smart as parents, but I want her to tell me about it because I want her to share with me, communicate, a relationship. That's how God is. He already knows what's going on.
That's right.
He wants you to talk about it.
Yeah, and it was very simple. It was just God. And I can tell you, and it sounds cliche again, but it was those weight of the world off the shoulders, rocks off the chest. And I can tell you that obsession and compulsion to drink left me. Now, that's not to say there's not been times that I've wanted to.
Yeah, temptation.
But probably for about 6 months afterwards, I didn't even think about it. It was just not even. It was not even in my rearview mirror. It was so far behind me.
That's awesome.
I couldn't even see. And thank God for. I'd gotten married during this time, and thank God for a godly wife who just
really stood by you.
My wife Beth, she was
awesome.
I would have never done what she did. She put up with a lot of crap, man. I'm just here to tell you.
So how did your addiction, lead to the makeup of your family today?
So there was a point during my drinking career. This is before I quit, about a year or two. I woke up during the middle of the night and I had the shakes.
What does that mean as a drinker when you get the shakes?
Withdrawal. Okay. Your body has gotten so used to having it that it's like a panic attack. I'm about to die, something's about to happen, and your body is physically shaking. It is a horrible feeling. Anybody's had a panic or anxiety attack kind of knows it's similar to that. When anybody's had withdrawal from a drug or alcohol knows what I'm talking about.
Like tremors.
Yeah. I remember laying curled up in a fetal position in my bed and saying, Lord, if you will just help me get out of this and heal my body and heal my spirit, I will do whatever you want me to do.
Yeah.
My wife, Beth, was teaching at the time. There was a 13-year-old boy in her class that was a foster child, and he was one of 4 siblings that was in the foster care system. And we started helping his foster parent at that time was an older lady. She was having a hard time with him. And so we became weekend respite keepers for Justin. Probably about a year and a half. Year later, we started fostering. We fostered the whole family.
Wow.
And then actually it's in February of this year will be our anniversary that we adopted. So
did you adopt all of them?
We adopted all 4 of them. We have Brittany.
That's amazing.
Brittany, who's the oldest, Justin, Brandon, and then Jackson.
That's so cool.
I've heard you say, I'm familiar with the story. Of course, I've read your book. And one of the things that you've said is turn your mess into a message. And we would have never been in this position to foster and adopt, which is a strong adoption.
Huge
is a
commitment.
But adoption is a big theme in the New Testament about how we are adopted into God's family. And none of that would have happened because when the need came up, oh my gosh, we're going to bring 4 kids that we don't even really know that way into our home. They're going to sit in my recliner and eat my Twinkies.
Yeah, they're going to be in your refrigerator, Jason. I got to eat my Twinkies.
What if they accidentally delete my shows on my DVR and all those big important questions?
Exactly. The priorities of life.
Yeah, but I remembered when that opportunity arose. I remembered laying in that bed and telling God, if you will help me, I will do whatever you want. And I'm like, dadgummit, I didn't know it would be this
but
way.
God, not this.
But I can tell you now, I would not have it any other way. I don't even know what life was like before them, you know.
It's so cool.
And so if I hadn't have been in that position, I would have never have been willing to open myself up like I did.
Yeah.
And my wife, she would adopt 20.
Yeah, exactly. So for anybody listening that's pondering adopting, what would be the advice you'd give them?
Well, I think adoption is, sometimes it's not necessarily adopting, their support roles. So a great gift that happened to us when we first started fostering, we hadn't even been adopted yet, was because our family was so large and it's so expensive to go to the movies, we would never go to the movies that much. And somebody in our church family gave us a gift card to the movie theater. So I think adoption is like similar to missions. Either you go or help send.
I like that.
So with adoption, you can adopt or you can support.
Role. I like that.
I'd say that if somebody is thinking about adoption, there's probably somebody in your church that has adopted, and I would talk to them.
Yeah, that's
because it's tough. You're making tough decisions. Somebody who does not have the same DNA as you, meaning that, you know, our kids, we skipped the little cute baby toddler stuff.
The sweet phase.
You know, the sweet phase.
Yeah.
And Jackson, our youngest, by the time they got to us, he was 9. You don't have all those cute little memories. And first thing I would say is talk to somebody who has adopted. And they're not hard to find.
Yeah. How could we reach you?
I'm very active on social media, especially Facebook. All my socials are at Jason Goolesby on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Okay. And let me spell that for you.
Yeah,
my last name is Goolesby. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, but I'm very active on Facebook. And hopefully I will have a beautiful, glorious website by the time. That's jasongoolesby.com.
We're going to speak it into being. Yes, you will. jasongoolesby.com. Thank you so much for coming on. And I think the beautiful message here is you can be a bad, lost Christian sitting in a church. And God will still find you. He's still chasing after you. And your prayer can be as simple as, God help me. I tried it my way.
He's in the miracle business. He fixes people.
It's not working.
Great physician.
And what a beautiful message you have and a beautiful family you now have.
Thank you.
It's so cool. So you could be one different choice away from a better tomorrow. Thank you for listening.
Need more Christy in your life? Watch her weekly Transparent Tuesday videos by visiting ChooseDifferent.org. Thanks for listening, and join us next time for Everyone Has a Voice with Christy Neal, brought to you by Choose Different Ministries.